Hi everyone, I'm Luke Bath and welcome to Ask the Expert, a daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. Please ask any questions in the comments or using hashtag QBATE, so that's hashtag QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, please join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7 to answer your questions. QuickBooks also have a dedicated website to help you as we come out of lockdown. To access this, just go to the QuickBooks website, scroll down and click on the big Learn More button under the header Support for You and Your Business During COVID-19. So as I mentioned before, I'm Luke Bath and I'm one of the partners at the accountancy firm Alliotts. So we're a medium-sized accountancy firm and we have offices in central London and Guildford. So we're a full service firm, and essentially what that means is we can do all the services a larger firm can do, but we can't do insolvency services. And there's approximately 100 staff and 13 partners currently. And around 40 years ago, we were one of the founding members of an international alliance called Alliott Group. So Alliott Group is an alliance essentially of 170 accounting firms and law firms, and that gives us a presence in over 70 countries, I believe it is at the moment, which is fantastic. And it means we can service clients internationally as they grow. So because of Alliott Group, as I briefly mentioned just now, a lot of our clients are international in nature. So whether that's they trade overseas, they import and export goods, or they might be the UK element of an overseas group. And personally, my particular specialisms are outsourcing and corporate finance. Outsourcing for us is essentially where we run your finance department in-house to a greater or lesser extent. We find outsourcing works particularly well for growing businesses because they may not need a full finance team in-house, or it's not cost effective to get a full-time accounting team in-house. And also it gives you access to the expertise of a firm of accountants and access to your accountant on a regular basis, and it makes it's quite good in that way too. And corporate finance is essentially buying and selling businesses, performing valuations of businesses for various purposes. So, for example, shareholder disputes, and things like share option schemes, which you may have heard of. So EMI schemes, growth shares to incentivize employees as the business grows. So just before we dive into the questions from you guys watching, I just wanted to quickly cover a few things. So first of all, a lot of firms recently have been receiving notices from HMRC as a result of non-compliance with Making Tax Digital, or MTD as it's often known. MTD was brought in April 2019, and essentially this means that for all businesses that have a taxable turnover over £85,000, they have to then comply with these new MTD rules. And what the rules say are that, at a summary level, that you have to keep your records digitally and you have to submit your VAT return to HMRC through software. And what I would say is, we recommend that clients use solutions like QuickBooks just because they kind of add they have lots of benefits over and above using something like Excel. And essentially you can keep all your invoices on there as well, which is obviously a massive benefit. And what I would say is, if you don't have an accountant, the best way to check whether if you do have an accountant, firstly I'd speak to them in the first instance. If you don't have an accountant, the government guidance on MTD is actually really good. And I would suggest that you go to Google, and if you type in VAT notice 700/22, so that's VAT notice 700/22, the first result that pops up is the link to the government guidance on Making Tax Digital, and it's actually really useful, and it shows you what you need to do to comply, what records you need to keep, that sort of thing. So definitely check that out. Secondly, I just wanted to briefly mention, you've probably all seen that over 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor announced the job retention bonus. The job retention bonus is a payment of £1,000 per employee that was previously on furlough and it remains in employment within the business by the 31st of January 2021. There's very little detail on how to apply for this, how you access it, etc. at the moment, but it's expected that we paid out from February 2021. Thirdly, just want to mention about the flexible furlough. I'm sure you're all already seen this and probably already using it, but I think it's worth mentioning anyway, for those who've not. So this was announced over a month ago. Essentially, it's a change, a very key change to the furlough scheme. So from the 1st of July, there's now no minimum period for furlough, and employees can be placed on furlough for any period of time. So, for example, any particular working pattern or length of time, employees can be placed on furlough and brought back to work, paid their normal pay for the time they're at work, and on furlough, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. Key thing to remember is any furlough claims for the period relating to before the 30th of June, they need to be submitted by the 31st of July. So you've got until next Friday to get those submitted. But with this flexible furlough scheme, the key thing is that only those employees that were previously placed on normal furlough, i.e. pre-30th of June, they're the only people that can be placed on flexible furlough. And the government is now tapering the scheme down. So from the 1st of August, you won't be able to claim for employers' NIC or the minimum pension contributions of those employees on furlough. From the 1st of September, obviously the government is paying for 80% of the wage. And from the 1st of September, the government will only pay for 70% and the employer is required to pay the remaining 10%. From the 1st of October, it's going to be 60% paid by the government, 20% paid by the employer. And the scheme in total is expected to close on the 31st of October. And actually, with the announcement of the job retention bonus, I don't think it's very likely that the furlough scheme in general will be extended past the 31st of October, which I think is worth bearing in mind. And then just finally, before we move on, you'll have all seen a couple of weeks ago the VAT rate cut from 20% to 5% on hospitality and leisure services. Best way to check if this applies to you is if you go to Google again, and this is actually where I found the list of where it applies to most businesses. If you Google VAT reduced rate on hospitality, so VAT reduced rate on hospitality, and there's quite a comprehensive list there of which businesses it applies to. The government's not required businesses to pass on that VAT savings, so essentially businesses have a choice. They can either lower their prices by 15% to reflect the VAT change, or you can continue to charge the normal price. You pay over a reduced amount of VAT to HMRC. Obviously, you benefit from the 15% difference. So that's all from me. So I think we're now ready to move over to the questions from you guys watching. So I'm just got some questions coming through. So I've got a question from Stanley on Twitter. Hello, Luke. Do you know if I'm required to keep any specific records in order to apply for my discount refund? I'm not sure what discount you're applying for there, Stanley. I'm just trying to think what that could possibly be. I'm assuming there actually you're referring to the changes announced by the Chancellor, the Eat Out to Help Out type scheme. I would imagine it's probably just your ordinary accounting records, although I've not seen the detail actually on that scheme. I'm not even sure if the detail is available yet, but I would imagine it's just general records of your sales, so that you can claim accordingly, probably receipts from your tills, etc. But yeah, I'm not sure on that one, Stanley, sorry. I'm assuming you're referring to that scheme. Then we've got another one from Kabir from Twitter. Hi, Luke. Have you seen any businesses taking advantage of the grant you receive from the government if you take on apprenticeships? What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, so Kabir, I haven't actually seen the detail. I saw obviously when it was announced a few weeks ago, and it does look quite generous. Like I say, I'm not that familiar on the detail, but I've not heard from any clients that are actually going for that at the moment. But I think if you can find high quality apprentices, and obviously there are many very talented young people out there. And I know actually internally within Alliotts, we occasionally use the old, not this one that's been announced, but the old apprenticeship scheme to take on new employees. And it is, I think that the recent changes from the government are quite generous. So, definitely worth looking at. I think you just have to check that, it's matches the needs of your business, and you're not just taking on those apprentices just for the benefit of the amounts the government are paying out. So we've just got a couple of other questions. So I've got a question here from Turner from Instagram. So, morning, Luke. Do you know when the bounce back loan will need to be repaid? So all the bounce back loans have a term of 6 years. I'm sure you've seen as well that they've all got 2.5% interest rates. And for the first year, there's no capital repayments and there's no interest paid. Well, rather, the government pays the interest for the first year. But yeah, so they all have terms of 6 years. And I believe none of them have early repayment penalties either. But yeah, essentially, they all have to be repaid within 6 years. So there's a question here from Harriet from Facebook Messenger. Hello, Luke. How will employer contributions and top-ups work going forward? What contribution will we need to make when the furlough scheme changes in August? So in terms of top-ups, obviously you've got the flexible rules that have come in from the 1st of July. Employers are still fully able to top up their employees' wages to 100%. That's not changed at all, so that's absolutely fine. In terms of what contribution we will need to make when the furlough scheme changes, so the furlough scheme is changed from the 1st of July. From the 1st of August, the changes that the government will no longer pay for the employer's NI or the minimum pension contributions of any employees that are furloughed from the 1st of August. That's the change there. Hopefully that answers your question there, Harriet. So we've got a question here from Celeste from Twitter. If I have a small takeaway pasta coffee shop and not a restaurant or pub, following the new rules of the government, should I keep a record of my customers of being a takeaway? So no dining in and not booking. I don't need to do that. Yeah, so I'm just trying to work out what you're asking there, Celeste. So I think, so as far as I understand it, essentially you're allowed to claim for any food dining in within a restaurant, excluding alcohol, but you are allowed other drinks, so soft drinks, and you are allowed to claim for hot takeaways. So in terms of keeping a record of your customers, I'm not sure whether it applies if you're a takeaway business only. I don't think it does. I think you should have a look and double check that. Or if you want to get in touch with me afterwards, I've not mentioned, by the way, but if you want to send, if anyone's got any questions or follow-up queries on any of my responses, please email me at luke.bath@alliotts.com. But yeah, so I don't think if you're a takeaway business only, I'm not sure whether you're eligible to claim. If you do have a small shop, I think you can claim on hot takeaways only. Well, in addition to the in-store element. I hope that helps, Celeste. If not, please follow up with me and I'll try and help out. I've got another question from Kate from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Luke. Do you know the situation with the VAT reduction from 20 to 5%? Is this for the benefit of the customer, i.e. we reduce prices, or for us, i.e. we still charge at 20% but only pay 5% to HMRC? So confused. So yeah, so Kate, it's, again, kind of as I was mentioning in the intro, the government hasn't said, the government ideally wants businesses to pass on the cost reduction to the general public, to the customers. But saying that, there is no requirement to do so. So you can either keep prices the same and benefit from the additional 15%, i.e. because you're only paying 5% to HMRC, but you're charging still the full, the same price you always were based on 20%, so you benefit 15%. Or you can reduce prices to reflect the reduction in VAT. that's really your choice, and probably, depends what your current situation is, what the situation of the business is. If you're trading well, it might make sense for your customers, to increase your custom, to reduce prices, for the benefit of your customers. Customers will probably like you more for that, and probably you might get more business out of it. But then if you're not doing very well, or you've been closed during the entire lockdown period, as I know many restaurants and takeaway businesses have, then you might want to benefit from the additional 15%. So really, I think personally, it depends what situation you're in. Henry from Instagram has got a question here. So, morning, Luke. Are you doing client meetings all still virtually? We think you can't beat a face-to-face meeting, so interested to hear if any of you at Alliotts have managed to get out there. So, Henry, so both of our offices are still closed. People go in once a week to pick up the post, but apart from that, over 100 employees are working from home. During lockdown, obviously, we've been doing client meetings virtually, which actually I find has worked quite well. So we've used things like Zoom, occasionally Teams, Skype. I think because it was an enforced lockdown pretty much for most of the world, everyone kind of had to adapt to doing Zoom meetings and virtual meetings overnight anyway. Definitely, I'd agree with you that you can't beat a face-to-face meeting. You pick up on cues in, the way someone's sitting, their body language, etc. in a face-to-face meeting that you just don't get over Zoom. And to be honest, as you're probably all familiar with, especially when you've got kids, I've seen it many times where I've been having a meeting with a client and someone will come in, their 5-year-old will run in and they want to hug or whatever, which you definitely don't get with face-to-face meetings. But what I would say is gradually, definitely at the partner level, we've got a few partners now that have started doing face-to-face meetings again at a socially distanced level, in coffee shops, near to where their clients live, etc., that type of thing. In the main, we're still doing virtual meetings, which work quite well, but not as good as a face-to-face meeting, I'd agree. So, just got some further questions here. So, good morning. So I've got a question here, from Mark from Twitter. So, good morning. Do you know what sort of records I will need to keep for MTD? We're a family-run butchers based in Swindon. Yeah, so Mark, I would suggest, as I was mentioning before, you get accounting software, ideally QuickBooks, purely because things like QuickBooks have essentially for MTD, you can use Excel and solutions like that, or you can use full accounting software like QuickBooks. I would recommend using QuickBooks because the benefit of that over and above Excel is you can see your profit position, you can see your cash position, you can see bank feeds. There are lots of add-ons that might be useful in your business, to keep inventory, there are many benefits over and above the MTD element. And I appreciate you might, as a business, you may just be tracking cash as a measure of, as measuring your profitability, or you're essentially just tracking cash. But QuickBooks does offer a lot of advantages over something like Excel. But in terms of keeping the records for MTD, essentially you need to keep a digital record of all your purchase invoices and sales invoices, or till receipts. So you don't have to keep digital copies of the actual invoices and receipts themselves, although if you're using something like QuickBooks, that is very easy to do. That's again another benefit. So, if you have an inspection from HMRC, or you're trying to work out, if I already have this invoice from this supplier, is this a second copy they've sent to me? And, you don't want to double pay something twice. Things like that, it makes it very easy to track just because you can attach copies of the invoices. But it's a high level. Essentially, you need to record for things like purchase invoices, the date of the supply, the date of the supply, the VAT rate of the supply, I'm just trying to think. There's a third. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But again, that link I gave you, or that, the description of the link. So VAT 700-22. If you Google that, VAT 700-22. If you scroll down, there are two subheadings for what you need to record for purchases and what you need to record for sales. But essentially, you have to have a digital record of each supply that you've received or made. And essentially they then form the totals of those supplies and purchases then form your VAT return. So I've got a question here from Bev from Facebook live feed. So can employers claim employers NI for furlough claims even if they have had the 4K annual employers NI allowance? So yeah, so pretty much all of our clients that are eligible, and I'd hope actually all of our clients that are eligible for it, claim the annual employer's national insurance allowance. So I mean, I've definitely not seen anything to say that you can't claim for furlough or for employer's NI if you've claimed the employer's NI allowance. Perhaps if your employer's NI allowance is lower than 4K in total, you probably can't claim for employer's NIC, because obviously you've not had to pay anything in the first place. But if it's over, if your annual NI bill is, let's say, 20,000, and you've claimed the full 4K employer's NI allowance, so you've paid 16, or you would normally pay 16 for the year, I can't imagine that that affects your eligibility to claim for the employer's NIC. I might be wrong there, but I don't think so. I don't think that affects your ability to claim whatsoever. But again, I'm happy to, if you want to send me an email just so I have your details, totally happy to follow up on that and just to run through with you in your particular case. Just got a question here from Jaspreet from, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, from Twitter. So with making tax digital, what do you think this could mean long-term for small business owners? So, yeah, I can see what you're saying there, Jaspreet. So I think the reason they brought in making tax digital is because it's a legal requirement to comply with the rules. So essentially, because the records that form the VAT return have to be linked to the 9-box totals on the VAT return, essentially, when they do an inspection on your VAT records, you've automatically essentially broken the law by default if you don't have those records tracking back that support your VAT return. So there's the first thing. But secondly, I can see a situation in maybe 10, maybe 20 years where HMRC has live access to the detailed data that underpins the VAT return. I think that's probably quite far-fetched given the systems of most businesses right now, but also the systems of HMRC. But I can see that in future, with things like AI and coming in and just systems like that, I can see that that's the way it's going, but I do think that's many years off. But there are massive benefits to for making tax digital personally. I think because it forces business owners to consider digital solutions that they've not necessarily considered before. So you might have businesses that have always been based on paper, a red ledger book, that are now thinking about or are forced to think about using solutions like QuickBooks, which is a good thing, because if they then get huge benefits out of you appreciate they might need to learn the systems and that type of thing, but there are some massive benefits. So just got one question from Sandra on Twitter. So, hello, have you found yourselves busier or quieter during COVID-19 at Alliotts? What kind of queries are you seeing and what are you advising to your clients? So Sandra, what I'd say is definitely busier, or it's certainly not been quieter. Certainly initially, when we first went into lockdown, there was many queries from clients about the CBIL loans and then obviously over time as the bounce back loans came out, mainly because the CBIL loans were very hard to apply for. So we did a lot of work with clients on trying to access those for them. And then obviously we kind of switched to doing, because obviously the number of meetings you can have face-to-face reduced, and opportunities for networking, things like that. We started to generate a lot of online content, which you can see on our website on Alliotts.com. So we kind of switched to doing a lot of webinars, a lot of information on the government support schemes, ways that businesses could kind of help themselves in terms of cash flow, things like that during the COVID, during the lockdown period. But yeah, definitely busier. I think personally, I was probably expecting a lot of clients to go, not a lot of clients, but clients to taper off or go out of business or stop trading and this type of thing. But I don't think that's been our experience for most of our clients. They've either switched to or really focused on the online element of their business, or they've been relatively unaffected by it, just the nature of their businesses. But in terms of queries right now, I think because we've come out of lockdown, I think those businesses that are able to work from home have always been doing so. And the businesses that are just returning back to work, we're just starting to get those normal queries coming through because of the lockdown easing a couple of weeks ago. So we're just starting to get those normal ad hoc type queries coming through. But in terms of speaking to my clients, because the nature of outsourcing is that I'll speak to clients on a weekly, fortnightly basis anyway. We're in constant communication, really, which is, again, one of the other benefits of outsourcing. So, I've kind of gone on that journey with them during the lockdown period. So I think we've probably just got time for one or two more queries. But I've got a question here. Lauren, I think it's Lauren from Facebook Messenger. Morning, Luke. What kind of record should we be keeping as a business in relation to furlough and flexible furlough scheme? So I think it's just keeping details of which employees you're claiming for and which hours you're claiming for, which days they relate to. It's very difficult without knowing what kind of business you operate, but I would say just keep records, which employees you're claiming for which periods, for which dates, and which claims they formed. And I think that's okay. Okay, so I think that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid. If anyone has any questions, then please get in touch with the QuickBooks support team on Facebook, or with me at luke.bath@alliotts.com. So Alliotts is spelled ALLIOTTS, or on 020-7240-9971. So coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow are Nick and Andrea Hills, who have both been full-time self-employed since 2002. So they've built a successful business selling a wide range of new and used goods, primarily on eBay and Amazon, but also use other platforms such as Depop, Etsy, and Facebook. They also have a YouTube channel with over 47,000 subscribers, which is pretty impressive. Tune in tomorrow and ask Nick and Andrea your burning business questions. A reminder that if you need any further advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7 to help with your questions. Thanks and stay safe.